anyway, what I want to talk about today is last year. Feel like I always kind of try to do one of these lives each year to kind of tell you where we're at and what's been going on, and try to be as much of an open book as possible. My business model is obviously pretty different than most people. So what I share with you may relate, may not. Obviously, always take what resonates and leave the rest. That is something I'm telling every one of you all the time, whether you're my client or not, is like, it really is about personalizing it to you. So I just want to kind of like do a caveat here that like, everything I say might not be something that like you should go run out and do right away, but like understanding the context is what's important and what's really helpful here. So here we are. Side note though, I have to do this before we move on. Hi Harsha, it's so good to see you. Okay, so I have to do this before we get started. Look at my nails. Okay. So good, right? These are over a week old and they are stick-on nails, like or stick-on nail polish. They're not like fake nails. Do you know what I mean? They're just like polish that sticks onto mine. I totally thought these were a gimmick and now I am fucking obsessed with them. There's like no dry time. I got it at Target. Anyway, PSA, because I think these are like the greatest things ever right now. What are they called? Dashing Diva. Hello. So anyway, that's my biggest tip for you going into 2021. Serena, you were not excited enough about my sticker nails, so I had to tell other people. They're so good. Please try them and report back. I like already, this is why they're sitting on my desk, because I like already ordered more just in case. Yeah. Anyway. And I swear I'm gonna stop talking about these. I'm gonna wear them for my wedding, which is so exciting because that's in like 20 days. And now I don't even have to go get my nails done. I'm just gonna wear stickers. Anyway, okay, let's talk about 2020. Hi, Susie. Yes, you need those. You totally let the team down, Sabrina. Tristan obviously got some for Christmas. Perfect. From Dad, of course. Hopefully also hoop earrings were included in that. Okay, so basically last year we, I don't know our final number yet since it's only Jan 4, but we made over 700K in cash and a lit up life, which I am so excited about and so proud of. And for me, that's super exciting for a few reasons. One is that doing that all on one-on-one is so cool to me. Like when I started in this industry, there was such a thing that like you couldn't scale one-on-one, you could never make more than a certain amount with it, all of that kind of stuff. So just like being able to have brought in that revenue and be at that place doing one-on-one is just really, really exciting to me. And then the other thing that's exciting is that it's all based on our clients making more money. So if you guys don't know, I do a revenue share model with my clients. So they pay a base rate, which is $12.50 a month, and then they pay 10% of new revenue generated on top of that. And so for me, anytime I'm making more money, one of my celebrations in it is that just means my clients are making more money, right? So when it feels like a win-win like that is just so exciting to me, and it's why I built this business model the way I have. So just really celebrating that, and then basically just want to kind of share with you the behind the scenes, what this year looked like. I had great parts of the year. I had not so great parts of the year. I definitely worked more this year than I ever have. So just want to like share about that and be transparent about that, because I feel like so much of our industry is about, like, how can you work as little as possible? And I actually like really intentionally worked quite a bit more this year. So I want to talk about that. And then obviously any questions y'all have, happy to answer those. Of course, as always too. Jackie said they didn't work for me. I definitely bought a few packs though because they are so pretty. Oh, Jackie, maybe try again. It took me a little bit to get it right, but yeah, they are really pretty. So I can see why you did. But I think it's like one of those things that like, you got to try a few times to get it right. Okay. So what can I share? So basically, for context, I haven't taken on a new client since May. So in May, I closed down my one-on-one practice. And so at the time, some people signed up for Jan or Feb, or maybe it was like some people signed up for December, Jan, or Feb. So like technically I've taken on new clients, but I haven't like taken on a new client since May unless they signed up in May. Does that make sense? And the only exception to that would be that I do have a new literally person starting. Well, she already started. So anyway, that would be the only exception to that. Obviously, there's a new literally podcast guest and clients that signed up in May. Does that make sense? So kind of really evident of the fact that like the percentage model works so well because we really haven't taken on new clients since then, but we've continued to scale. Hi, Sherry. She said, excited to join for today's live stream after waiting in the world's longest CVS line. Oh no. Well, thank you for being here. Hi, Natalia. She says, I love your nails. Need to try since I have the patience of a toddler and can't wait for my nails to dry. Exactly. Same. That's why I'm like obsessed with these, because I actually like did one hand and then got distracted, did something else, came back and did the other. Very useful. I imagine if you're a mom, that would be really helpful too. Hi, Patricia. Oh, I'm so glad you love literally. Thank you. So let's talk about why I've worked more. So a couple of reasons. One is I wanted to. I think that, you know, so sometimes like we can take that too far, right? We can sort of get obsessed with work. We can make that this like very intense thing, but also sometimes like it's just a thing that you really love. Like for me, I really, really, really like running my business and I really like what I'm doing. And the stage in life that I'm at this year, there just wasn't much else to do, to be perfectly honest. Like we're not traveling, we're taking COVID rather seriously because Kenny works in healthcare and works with a lot of physicians, and because we're seeing my parents who are much older, and so we're trying to be really careful with that. We're also seeing my grandmother who has COPD. So like all of these reasons, we're like not traveling a ton, we're being super careful, we're just home a lot. And so I actually specifically said to my team, like, I actually want to be working more. This feels good. I want to keep adding that in. Like, you know, I just took off, I think 2 weeks for Christmas break, and it's like, was fun and amazing. And I like loved watching Hallmark movies all day. And I loved resting and relaxing and reading and all of those things. But like on the grand scheme of things, I'm not like necessarily trying to work so much less so I can like watch more Hallmark movies. For me, like there's no judgment if you want to do that or want to work less, but this is like my experience of last year. And so I really felt like last year was a year I wanted to work more. I also felt like the online space was exploding last year. Like I really, really think that, you know, our space grew leaps and bounds last year. And so I wanted to be like in that and part of that and like capitalizing on that. And also I don't have kids right now, you know, maybe someday, right? But it just made sense for me. And I feel like, you know, some people had the totally opposite experience. I have so many clients that are mamas and that had to work less than they ever have last year. It's just a season of life thing, right? And so I think that sometimes what our industry does is we make one right or one wrong, you know? Like there's this group that thinks like if you're not hustling it out all the time, you don't want it bad enough. And then there's this group that thinks like if you're working a lot, like you don't have balance and you're like missing the whole point and whatever. And so I just normalizing that. Like last year for me happened to be a work a lot more year. Next year for me, we'll see. Do you know what I mean? Like if we can move about quite a bit, I probably will work a little bit less. You know, it just really depends. So I think like the takeaway for that is like permission for you to do whatever feels good for you. But like, my clients run the gamut. I have some clients who will never ever work more than 20 hours a week, no matter what. And I have some that came to me last year asking the same question, like, hey, I'm kind of wanting to work more. Is that bad? Am I missing something? Like, is that unhealthy or whatever, right? And so just not making it wrong either way, but looking at your season of life, what's actually happening for you, what your experiences are. Like my year last year was made so much better by working more, right? That's just what was true for me. That, you know, and I've had, I think the year before last, I actually worked quite a bit less. I think I even did a live stream on like how I worked a lot less. And that was like right at the time. That's when I had like renovated my house, started dating Kenny, like had all of these life things going on. So that made sense at the time too. So anyway, season last year for me, worked a lot, felt really good doing it. Hi, Eve. Yes, Patricia says smart. Love it. Hey, Krista, totally identify with that. Yes. Sherry says, yes, I love that. It's a season of life thing, not a better, worse, right or wrong thing. Amen. Perfectly said, Sherry. So another reason I worked more was also because I accidentally overfilled. Just being real honest here. So I had a wait list that was like quite a few months out for a while, and I was basically doing it based on a 75% client retention rate. So I was estimating like if 75% of my clients resign, we'll have this many spaces kind of thing. And then what happened was we got up to like a 95 to 100% resign rate. So then like effectively just got really full. So another reason I worked this a lot more this year is because I just took on a lot more clients than I have in the past because of that resign rate. But two things are true there. One is that it's really, really, really important to me that like if a client is working with me, they can always resign. Like that is one of the pillars of my business. And so I didn't want to say to anyone like, no, you can't resign. But another pillar is, like keeping my word too. So I didn't want to go to any of the people that I had said I would take on as a new client and be like, actually, sorry, I can't. Like some of them have been waiting for months at that time. So it was just a conscious choice for me to say like, I'd rather take on more calls, take on more clients and overfill so I can keep my promises on both regards. And again, season of life, I just had the flexibility to do that. And that's really just important to remember. And it's also just important to remember that there's not a perfect or exact science to that. Like I fucked it up. I'm sure I'll fuck it up again in the future. It's fine. I fixed it. Like you can make a mistake or you can miscalculate or whatever in your business and you can still fix it. So that was just a big lesson, that I wanted to kind of pass along is that we're all just like making a guess, doing the best we can. 75% resign rate was what I was basing it on. I was incorrect. Obviously, I would much rather more of my clients be wanting to resign. So it's not a bad thing, but certainly like even the good things that happen in your business have ramifications, have decisions you have to make after that, have things you want to deal with. And you just get to decide which of those works best for you. If I had like a really finite amount of hours, then I may have had to tell someone, hey, I just can't, or I might have had to estimate a much higher resign rate at the time or whatever, but shit happens. You figure it out, you fix it. The thing that I really learned in my business is to trust myself to know that I'll always make it right. And I feel like that's what I did this year. Like I didn't estimate appropriately, but I trust myself to always make it right. I did. And that's how we keep moving forward. So for me, like that's how you build self-trust in your business is to kind of just know like there will be times where I get it wrong, I guess wrong, I fuck it up, I make the wrong decision. Can I just roll with that? Can I trust myself that I will make it right? Regardless, such an important thing, such a gift that you can give yourself in business. And then the last reason I worked quite a lot more this year is because there were just lots of fucking things happening. Hey, Sarah. Thank you for being here. There were just lots of fucking things happening this year, right? Like there was so much to adapt to manage, like, when COVID hit, it was like so many of my clients like needed higher level support than they normally do in terms of like, how are we adapting? What's our messaging? That kind of thing. I showed up in this community every day and tried to like really give a lot of value. There was a lot of, things I wanted to put in place in this community as it relates to anti-racism and how we're like being a stand for that and how important we're making that. So there were just all these things that happened this year that just required more attention, more adaptation than I normally would have given in previous years. And what my takeaway is for that is that you almost have to plan that circumstances will pop up. I teach my clients this all the time, is that sometimes that we kind of like play to the perfect scenario, like we calendar as though like nothing will ever come up, or we plan as though, you know, like no extraordinary set of circumstances will ever occur. And that's just usually not true. And so last year, obviously way more of them and way more intense than usual occurred, but it's still so important that we're kind of thinking like, life will probably happen. Do I have margin for that? Right? I'll probably have to adapt and shift in business at some point. Do I have margin for that? If you're so razor thin on your margin, that's when it gets really hard to adapt and when business gets really hard. So obviously it just, for me, the option there was just working more, right? To take on those extra clients that I had said yes to adapt as things changed. That was kind of just where I was at. And so it just added up over time. I certainly don't like regret any of that. And I don't wish it were different that I added on hours. If I didn't want to add on hours at that time, I definitely would have had to pivoted and found other ways, found other team members to support me, found other options for those clients, etc. But for me, last year, because the year before, I think I'd already said this, because the year before I had worked quite a bit less, it was kind of easy for me to bump back up this year. Like I had margin left. So that's another big lesson, is like, do you have some left that you can bump up when you need to, right? Obviously that depends. Some of my clients, like I said, are mamas that are working 20 hours a week. There's not a lot of margin there, so we have to make other choices. But ultimately, for me, I was able to just go, hey, I worked a lot less last year. I have time in my schedule to work more. Let me just do that. Another reason I was able to do that is because before the pandemic, Kenny traveled like 3 to 4 nights a week at least for his work. And now he's working at home full time. So I've just also had more like at home support with like dinners, dogs, house stuff, that kind of stuff. So like all of it just kind of lined up that I was able to do that. So anyway, just like continuing to reinforce that, like, it was just because it was the season and because I had brought it down the year before. So it's easy to bring it up this year. So no shame either way, but that was my experience. Hi, Kate. Oh, watching during bath time. Hey, Jen, thank you for being here. If y'all have any questions, just let me know. I'm like just telling you what I thought was important. And I know it's just always helpful to hear the behind the scenes, but if there's anything I can answer, let me know. So those were the 3 reasons why I worked more, because I chose to, because last year required a lot of us responding and adapting, and because I accidentally overfilled. Something else to mention, I don't include, so y'all know I have another business, which is Happy Thoughts Show, and I have that business. We run a podcast, all that with my best friend, Sarah. I don't include Happy Thoughts revenue when I tell you the 700K amount, but I will say that Happy Thoughts like experienced a lot of shifts last year too. So I actually saved a bunch of time in that business because we are basically, our whole revenue model for Happy Thoughts was based on retreats. We were up to selling 4 retreats a year. So all of that went away last year. We actually refunded in full people that had already paid for retreats, things like that. So I saved time on 4 retreats, which is significant, but I certainly lost all of that revenue as it relates to Happy Thoughts. So anyway, that just felt important to say too, where I did buy back some time there with retreats as well, but I certainly lost quite a bit of additional income there too. So anyway, context there. Tristan said 100% my timeline estimates are generally 5 to 34 times too optimistic. Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I think most of us are like that, but I do think that that's like really, really important to mention. Hi, Kate says, love that I caught you. Same. Steph says, what was your number one source of client attraction? I would say this group, really. And probably my podcast as well. But I think most people come in through this group and then go to the podcast from this group. I think this group is something where we attract a lot of clients and podcasts. We do probably a better job of converting over there. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so Happy Thoughts, we lost a lot of revenue, but obviously bought back that time. So the things that Patricia, I think you asked a question. Oh yeah, you did. Okay. Is that your same plan this year with working more hours? Yes. For right now, I'm definitely planning on working more hours. I still have a really high retention rate and still had people starting from May and Jan and Feb. So that's just going to happen. And I'm also doing something else coming up. Something little. And I also added on happy hours for my clients and added a few different little things this year. So I definitely still plan on working more. That still feels really good to me. I've liked the pace of that so far. I imagine at the end of this year, I'll probably start pulling back on that a little bit. But for right now, that's the plan. Yeah. Sherry says, can you share how you approach supporting clients outside of planned coaching calls during this year when maybe they needed extra support and choosing to work more intentionally? Like, how do you keep good boundaries for yourself and clients around checking messages, et cetera, knowing that you may have a lot going on? How do I balance that? Basically, like, I have pretty set response times with clients and pretty set ways in which I show up. So the way I communicate with my clients is in Basecamp. And so everyone knows that I will always respond to you within 24 hours, but usually it's significantly less. And I usually check it 3 times a day, like morning, afternoon, evening kind of thing. So for me, it's not so much that it's like how do I want to say it? Like when there's the week of the pandemic or whatever, like everyone was probably messaging me. On another week, like some people will message me one day, some people will message me another, that kind of thing. But what I just tried to do is keep my schedule no matter what. Now, sometimes that morning time stretched longer than it normally does, or sometimes that evening time stretched out a little more if more people or more clients are reaching out. But what I really just try to do is like stay on that timeline and stay on that schedule, because that really helps me in terms of feeling like, okay, fine, I can like go a little longer in the morning, or I can add as much time as I have to at night, but it still made me feel more in control than reactive. So that is what has helped me quite a bit. Trisha says, just teasing us, I know. I hate that too. It's so fucking annoying, but it's also relevant. How do you balance the more hours? So for me, I really try to have eyes on my hours. Like I have, a clear idea of like what those are gonna be, what they look like. And then I just try to like really intentionally choose where it feels good for me to spend them. So personally, like what I really like to do is like, I would rather work a shorter day during the weekday, and then I would rather do a few things on weekends. So like I record a lot of my waitlist videos and a lot of my podcast clip-ins on like a Saturday morning. That just works for me. I really like that. Or I'll record it like on a Sunday afternoon or whatever. Kenny is like crazy about football. So like on a Sunday afternoon, I'm like, oh, whatever. I'd rather record it then than like work longer or later. So for me, it's just about balancing like when it feels better to do it, if that makes sense. And that's kind of like how I found the balance. And like same with client calls. Like I have my schedule set up in a way where like, I have my call, what am I trying to say? Call availability. That's what I'm trying to say. Spaced out in a way that feels good. Like, so sometimes I start early in the morning. Sometimes I don't start till afternoon. I go till later in the evening. So I just try to provide myself some like buffer there and do it in a way that kind of feels best, so that more hours don't necessarily feel like a ton more intensity, but just kind of control them as best as I can. Thank you, Kate. As a busy mama, having Lacey in Basecamp is a game changer. It makes getting coaching so accessible when I can't be present for a traditional one-on-one with a coach. So kids are climbing on me and screaming, and I can still get her support simultaneously. Yes, so important. And I think like, I really think that having that connection point with my clients is one of the reasons they get really good results. So thank you for saying that, Kate. You're the best. Okay, so things I added this year. I added mostly I added things to keep my waiting audience warm, right? And to kind of solve the right problem. So like, biggest problem for me this year was like, what are we doing with all the people that we can't serve right now? And so things I added were like, if you get on the wait list, you get a personal video from me, and you also can submit questions to me each month, and you get my answers each month via video or podcast. We have like a podcast stream, a private podcast stream. So I added that, and then there was something I added. We had a lot more passive income sales this year. So I also added that anyone who buys one of our products gets a video from me. So those were two really big focuses that I added, because our biggest problem to solve was like, how do we stay connected with people even when they can't buy from us right now? How do we still serve them really well? How do we still build that relationship? The way in the past I was building that relationship was get on a sales call. And so in the absence of being able to do that, we added those kinds of things this year. I feel like there's one other thing I added. I'm trying to think. I added client lessons to my Instagram stories. So I was kind of like doing those very, very, very sporadically. But now on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every week I do client lessons on Instagram. So those are the three things that we added this year to solve the right problem. I talked about this on a live stream I did with my COO, Megan, but like, we really tried to kind of like game plan as it relates to solving the right problem. So the problem we had to solve this year was like, how do we stay connected? How do we still give a ton of value in the absence of being able to make the sale? Which sounds like such an annoying fucking problem to have. Trust me, I know, but it still was a problem. Nonetheless, so those were the things that we added. The thing that's nice about all of those things is that it's very routine and systematic. So what I mean is like, the client videos, I have to do those once a month. I know what week I have to do it. I know when I have to do it. Sending out videos to everyone that signs up for the waitlist or purchases from us. I do those a couple times a week. Like the client lessons, I record once a week, that kind of thing. So it really kind of puts me in this position where I can like add small tasks that are manageable each week without, like totally changing up my entire schedule. So those were like the small wins that I could add on. Michelle says, do you think that you guys love the video. Awesome. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Steph. Hey, Claire. Michelle says, do you think you'll go back to doing sales calls? Do you think you'll go back to doing sales calls after finding all these other ways to nurture your audience and continue that connection? For sure. Yeah. If I'm going to work with someone long-term, I'm for sure going to do a sales call. I think some people almost like find sales calls to be like a negative or something. Like they're like, someone shouldn't need to have a sales call with me. I don't really think that's true. Number one, like if you're paying me, I think you should for sure have a sales call with me. But also, I want to make sure we're the right fit if we're going to work together in a long-term one-on-one capacity. So for me, I'll definitely go back to sales calls, because I think that's really important, because the reason I think my clients stay so long and get such great results is because I know we're really, really, really good fits. And so for me, like the sales call is kind of a non-negotiable to making sure that continues to be true. So yeah, for sure. I'll probably be rusty at them. Bless you if you're my first sales call after all of this. I'm sure it will be an interesting ride, but yeah, I'll for sure go back to doing them. Okay, what else did I want to tell you? Yeah, so basically, another thing is that my team expenses went up quite a bit, but so did my revenue. But what's interesting is like typically those are related, if that makes sense. So like in the past, when like team expenses have gone up, it's because we did something revenue generating, that they were helping us like launch the podcast or whatever. So like the year that we launched, literally, obviously team expenses jumped for that, but then literally converted so many people. This year, what was interesting is my team expenses went up, but the revenue went up as well, but they weren't related. So the revenue was really going up because we had, clients making more money. Like obviously that's where pretty much all of our revenue is coming from. But what team time went up on is the other things that I said, like the nurturing. So like setting up all the video stuff, helping me manage that, getting those videos to a podcast, getting those emails out once a month, managing the wait list, helping me with client stories on Instagram. All of those nurture points expenses went up significantly with. So not significantly, I'm being dramatic, but like, we added a decent amount of expenses too. So that was just like an interesting thing this year of kind of being like, I'm willing to like invest in the long game here. And so I'm willing to spend this money that I don't actually have to spend right now because I know that it will help me later. So it was just kind of a different way of thinking about it than I've thought about it in past years, where it felt very connected in past years. Like we're going to do this thing and then it's going to make us more money right away kind of thing. Not right away, but like within the year time frame. This year it was more like, we're going to do this thing and we're going to pay for it. And hopefully it's going to set us up to make more money, a year or two out. So that's why our expenses went up quite a bit this year. But something that I really value and that's super important for me in my business is having great margins and having great profit numbers. I think revenue is great, but I think profit is what matters. So for example, like we're going to make $700K this year, but we're basically profiting like $1 million business, if that makes sense, because we keep our expenses in check because we're just doing one-on-one. So anyway, like my point in saying that is another thing I had to do this year was actually watch that really closely, because in a sense, everything was a good idea this year. I've talked about that so much. If you've watched client lessons, I'm sure you've heard many about how once you get to a certain point in your business, everything's a good idea and you have to really be careful with that. So everything's a fucking good idea this year. And we have a lot of revenue coming in. And so for all intents and purposes, I could have gone nuts and had team like do this. And why don't we build out this funnel? And why don't we try this? And why don't we, engage more here? And why don't we do XYZ else in the group and blah, 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 blah. And, my COO, Megan, and I just had to have a lot of conversations of like, does it make sense to spend on this year? Yes, it's a good idea. Yes, it would be interesting. But if we're not planning on taking on clients again until a year later, like, should we really be spending here? And so I had to watch more this year than I ever have, because it's just so tempting, right? Like, and it's almost more fun, to be honest, when you're doing it because you don't even need to get a client. Like I was like having ideas probably left and right more this year than I maybe ever have. Like one of my jokes in business is I've had like about 4 good ideas in business, and I've been in business for 5 years. This year I had a lot more. Just had to really fucking rein it in. And thank God for my amazing COO, Megan, for helping me to rein that in and kind of being like a checkpoint with me on that, where she's really good at being like, yeah, it's a great idea. Sure you want to do that? You sure that makes sense? I'm like, oh, no, Megan, it doesn't make sense. So just so grateful to her. And make sure you have someone that's doing that for you, whether that's your coach or your COO or whatever, like having someone that's a checkpoint for like, yes, that's a good idea. Yes, that would probably create a lot of interest. Does that make fucking sense right now? For me this year, I had to work so hard on saying no to a lot of the like good ideas that just didn't make sense based on where our business model was at, what our opportunity was, what we were able to bring in, all of those kind of things. So anyway, like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that's such a great problem to have. And it's kind of annoying, but I'm just trying to be like transparent about like that these are some of the problems that come up when you're making a lot of, you could spend as much as you want, but if you want to be profit focused, if you want to do things that just make sense versus like doing everything because you can, that's super, super important. And like, I think the biggest thing to kind of think about there, yeah, I do have a long list of good ideas. I think actually, again, thank God for Megan. I think she's captured them to sit somewhere for us. And another thing that I just want to say is like, this year was just like also the culmination of a lot of years of it working. We've been doing the revenue share for, I think, 3 years now. Oh my God, 3 years now. And it really took time for that to take off for a variety of reasons that I've talked about elsewhere that I don't even talk about here, but like it really, really did take a lot of time and patience and energy for that to fully pay off. And this year it just skyrocketed and really, really paid off. We had a couple clients go to $1 million this year. We had some go over. Like we really, had that start to work in a new way. And so that, is just one of those things where it just took the time for that to kind of pop. And so this is just like a reminder that it really is about just doing the things you're doing really well. Like this year, yes, we added those touch points with our audience, but ultimately this year happened because we've been doing that same thing for 3 years and it just started working really, really, really well. And so just remembering that in your own business, I'm not saying you always have to wait 3 years. Again, my business model is totally different, but that idea of like staying locked in on, a particular thing that's working and continuing to work it again and again and again is what ultimately keeps it working really, really well over time. Patricia said, moving forward, you're still doing the revenue share 100%. I'm super, super, super committed to that business model. Think there's nothing that works better for me. I'm obsessed with it. It is literally why we made what we made this year. I have no doubt about that. That's super fucking clear to me. So 100% will keep going on that. And it just feels so good to me. Like when I look at that 700, knowing that it's because, my clients made whatever that would be, like, I'm just making numbers up here, but like 7 million or whatever, just feels so friggin' great to me and so powerful. What else do I want to tell you? I think like the last thing I'll say is just like, oh yeah, Krista says, can you describe really quickly how that works? A customer sends a monthly screenshot of their payment processor or yeah. So Krista, basically, like we just ask our clients once a month to report monthly revenue. They don't have to send like a screenshot of their processor or anything. They just literally type in the number to me. I have never questioned or second guessed that at all. So they just report monthly what their revenue is. And so we invoice twice a month. Once a month is base rate, which is $12.50 a month. And then second part of the month is we invoice 10% of new revenue. And so they just report that to us in Basecamp once a month and they get 2 invoices. Let me know if that makes sense, but happy to answer anything else there. Sherry says, so you may or may not be ready to go here, but I was curious if you feel good staying with one-on-one with a few smaller offers, or if you feel a desire to scale more in other ways. That's a great question, Sherry. Yeah, happy to answer that. Yeah, for the most part, we'll be staying with just one-on-one and small offers. I don't foresee myself doing like a traditional group program. I do have a very big craving to be connecting with all of you more. So I have been thinking about ways to do that. But in terms of like the, will I be expanding value centered sales mastermind, or will I be adding another high ticket offer or doing other things other than one-on-one? No, I definitely don't foresee that. I always say this, like I'm totally available to change my mind. Like I don't feel rigid about that, but for right now, that just doesn't feel like something I will do. Like the thing that I feel like this year proved to me too is like, for me, like one-on-one is like where it's at for me. Like working way more and still feeling super lit up and super good and having our clients get super fucking amazing results. Like it just, I feel really in alignment and I feel really on purpose. And so many of my clients this year have given me that feedback too. Like I have so many like people that have said to me, like, I just really feel like you're in your purpose. I really feel like this is what you're meant to be doing. And it's just been cool to feel that even deeper, to have my clients reflect that to me. And so I just feel like that's where it's at for me. And that's where I'll stay for now. Again, I do want to connect more, but I think it will be in, you know, still smaller scale kind of stuff and not so much in the like bigger group. If you guys don't know, I also do a sales mastermind, but there's only 3 people in the mastermind. I get asked a lot if I'm gonna do more than 3 people, and I won't. I really like it being 3 people. I think it makes it unique and high touch, and I think that's also why people get great results in there, because you know, that's what works for me personally. Again, this isn't like commentary on like everyone should care about one-on-one and small touch masterminds. A lot of my clients have like 30 people in their mastermind. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just what works for me. Thank you, Claire. Love you too. Yeah, one-on-one is so powerful. I completely agree. Okay, cool. So last thing I think, and again, ask me any questions you have, but this is sort of like the last point I will make about last year, is like, I doubled down on mindset work. Like, y'all know I've been doing mindset for a long time. It's my thing. I believe in it, but I went hard last year. I'm teasing a little bit, but I really did. Like, I have two, I've said this a million places, but like I have 2 documents open on my computer right now. One is like appreciation and appreciation and like gratitude decisions, however you want to say it. And another one is Kenny appreciation. And if I'm having like a day, like I'm pulling those up in between calls, I'm typing things on them. I'm just really trying to stay focused on what feels good. I've had to be like very diligent about watching my news consumption. I'm definitely a believer in watching the news, and I certainly, for me, still want to do that, but I have to be really careful how often. I've had to really make putting good things in my brain a priority. I've listened to like the same mindset books that I love over and over again. I've committed to, you know, doing daily mindset practices that I, you know, have always done, but maybe not at this scale that I've committed to this year. It's just been so important to me with so much going on that creates a lot of anxiety and you know, fear and all of those things. For me, I'm totally a control freak. So this year has just taken away like so much of my ability to feel safe in controlling things. So I've had to find safety in so many other ways. So I just want to like normalize that, where I think that sometimes we think like, oh, once I get to a certain point in my business, I like won't have to worry about that, or I won't have to focus on that. And I just want to be transparent that I've had to like ramp it up this year, and obviously paid off, right? Like we had a tremendous year. We made amazing revenue. I feel so good in the work that we're doing, all of that. Like, but that's why, is because I got so locked in, committed to that. I really think this year would have been completely different for me if I hadn't. I think it would have been so easy to get swept up in the current of like fear and anxiety and all of that. And I like noticed that right away. Like I was like, oh no. I feel where this could be going. Here's what we're doing instead, kind of thing. And just got really relentlessly committed to that, right? Claire says, love that. Peter laughs as I put in my 5-minute gratitude journal every morning, Peter, for bringing me tea. Aw, so good. Yeah. Well, I have one for Kenny because, like I said before, he was traveling 3 or 4 days a week, and now, I mean, like we were apart more than we were together almost, and now we're together like all the time. So it's just like so important for me to like stay on the right path with that, stay on the right path with my business. Like I think there were some people at the beginning of you know, all of this craziness that kind of like decided it would go bad. And there were some people that kind of decided it would, you know, be okay and go well. And so you know, it's just like, are you going to stay in that decision? Are you going to keep committing to that? And for me, like, I'm a little more prone to like anxiety and things like that. And so I just have to really stay on top of it. And so this year I had to work at that. But again, I think the work paid off. So it's not to say that that's bad. It's just to be transparent that like we're all still having to do that. You know what I mean? Sherry's Sherry read your comment, Kate. Mindset is forever to the tune of diamonds are forever. So good. That's so funny. Also true. I feel like that should be a whole thing. So yeah, that was really it. I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say about mindset. I think just, you know, continuing to believe it was still possible to grow. It's still possible to grow even more. Like, I think personally for me, initially, when I had decided like I'm not going to take on more clients, I almost felt like I was saying no to more revenue. Like, I didn't think, oh, I'm not going to take on any more clients and we're going to add 200K cash. Like, that didn't feel connected at the time. But what I did lean on was the idea of like, I know this is the right decision for me. And anytime I've made a really aligned decision in my business, things always pay off. So that was a huge piece for me. I wasn't necessarily like locked in on, we have to make 200K more. I was more locked in on like, I know this is the most right and aligned decision. And like, I think if you guys watched, or were around at that time, I described how hard that was for me. I think I cried on a fucking live stream telling y'all about it. So it was a really hard decision, but I just knew it was right. And so what I really locked in on mindset wise was like, anytime I made a really like aligned, right decision, the money works itself out. And that was true this year. But again, I was like cultivating that belief all year kind of thing. So yeah, that was just really, really a big deal for me. And just like, no shame if you have to keep doubling down on it. We're in the fucking middle of a pandemic and like prolonged trauma and all of these things. Like, it's probably the best time in the world to do that. So if you have felt like you're on a roller coaster this year, if you've had to double down on mindset more, same, like that doesn't necessarily go away as you make more, but it just gets easier because you've seen it work so many times. Yeah, Steph says I'm a mindset coach as part of my consulting business. It makes such an impact. Completely agree. At all levels, non-negotiable. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, I think like in terms of takeaways, like work as much or as little as you need to, know what season you're in and don't compare yourself to someone that's in a different season. You know, do make the right aligned decision and then assume the money is going to follow. Double down on your mindset, capitalize on what's already working and solve the right problem. Like, I really think that that's the thing we did super fucking well this year too, is we solved the right problem. Like, we solved the problem of like keeping that audience connection, of serving our clients super well, of me staying in the right mindset, like that kind of stuff. Like, we just kept solving the right problem this year. And when you do those like micro steps that feel so small, it really does add up to the bigger picture. So hopefully that really helps. Patricia's is totally, as an accountant, clients needed more support. I had to be on point with my own mindset 100%. Like, I remember thinking that, like, I think one of my like things and decisions that I made, like as soon as all this happened, was like, I'm going to be the most grounded and present and peaceful coach I've ever been. And just like really committed to that, because exactly, I knew that that was going to be required. And again, like, so happy to see that that's true. Like, I doubled down on serving my clients and then their profits went up significantly, which is why we added so much revenue. So if y'all have any more questions, let me know. I hope that this was just a transparent look. And again, your problems are not necessarily going to be my problems, or the things I did aren't necessarily going to be what you should do. I have a different business model than anyone, so it might not always fit, but if you can kind of take those big takeaways and big lessons and just let them kind of guide your next steps or give you permission, that's really where the win is at. So thank y'all for being here. I'm wishing you the absolute best and happiest 2021. If you want to get on our one-on-one wait list, I will put the link for that below. And if you have any other questions, just let me know. And I hope you guys have a beautiful week, and I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.